100 years ago, a group of investors in Madrid scraped together $1.5 million Spanish pesetas, a rather small amount of money even for the time. And what they built with it, well, frankly, it was pretty humble. They built a short secondary railway line somewhere in the mountains, constructed with the cheapest materials they could find. Workers laid down light 25 kg per meter rails, better suited for a wooden city streetcar. The thin trolley wire hung between the sparsely placed poles, struggling to deliver the power. Starved, the train had to climb a very steep slope, on the edge of what was physically possible. Nevertheless, the line was a huge success. Even King Alfonso XIII rode the train on the day of its inauguration. So what made this humble railway worthy of the royal family's own attention? To answer this question, we'll have to go back 300 years. Today, we are used to seeing mountains as a place of leisure. Skiing, hiking, or crowds taking the same pictures to show off on Instagram. But for most of human history, the idea of going to the mountains on your own free will, without any particular reason, just to loaf around, and moreover paying for the experience, was just insane. Mountains were places of danger, senseless danger. Impassable paths, wild animals, scarcity of food and water, and all that for what? Up in the mountains there is no fertile soil or usable wood. Having to climb uphill just for a breathtaking view, twisting your ankle, and then dying from infection did not seem like a good use of your precious free time. The elites, who lived for leisure and had all the free time in the world, saw the mountains as uncivilized and therefore ugly. Their idea of beauty favored formal gardens, laid out in geometrical order, ideally symmetrical classical palaces, and perfectly proportional churches, all strictly aligned by man. English traveller Horace Walpole, who, like many other members of the British nobility, did his grand tour to Italy in the early 18th century, described the Swiss Alps in the following way: "I hope I shall never see them again." Later, writers often depicted travelers closing their carriage windows while crossing the Alps, simply to avoid seeing those horrible landscapes. Fast forward 300 years, and everyone in our carriage has opened their window, stuck their phone out, and recording the trip, hoping to rewatch it again and again in the future. The very same landscapes that once inspired nothing but fear and disgust are now held up as a standard of natural beauty. So it was 100 years ago when this railway was built and the Spanish bourgeoisie has gained access to the high mountain and all the fantastic leisure opportunities it had to offer. But what changed over the preceding 2 centuries? Why are we so attracted to places that most humans who ever lived on Earth tried to stay away from? I can go on and on about how the Age of Enlightenment brought new scientific curiosity about nature and the desire to understand it through reason. How Romanticism then shifted the focus to emotion, and how the major influencers of the time started hyping the concept of sublime, teaching us to feel not only weak and terrified in the face of nature's power, but also awed and intensely alive. Those are all very smart words, but let's cut the bullshit. People started climbing mountains because they finally had something to do there. The brave scientists wanted to study the rocks, the weather, and the Earth's atmosphere. That's why they climbed Mont Blanc in 1786. Then the romantics saw that it was safe, well, relatively safe, and followed in search of emotion. And the rest? Well, people do what the influencers do. If the influencers say that the mountains are ugly, people stay away. If they declare the mountains to be beautiful and morally superior, then everybody feels the irresistible urge to be there. Wallets open, boots laced, chasing the same, now approved sense of wonder. In today's world of social media trends, this effect is even stronger. Mass tourism and overcrowded destinations become a bigger problem every year. And yet, as we look out the train window, we can't help but notice that this mountain seems almost abandoned. There are stations where the train doesn't even stop. When we check the map, we see that these stations are in the middle of nowhere, with no walking path leading to them. So, what happened here? Let's take a closer look, step by step. A century after our English travelers declared the Alps ugly, the first Swiss five-star luxury hotel opened in St. Moritz in 1856. 70 years later, because trends spread slowly in pre-digital era, the fashion for mountain sports finally reached Spain. It arrived by railway, aboard the Swiss-made trains that, by then, had been perfected to an art. And until recent events, our small mountain railway has always been working with Swiss-designed trains. Inside and outside, those are incredibly beautiful machines, with modest but high-quality materials and truly timeless engineering. The construction of the mountain railway changed everything. The steam train had arrived in the area in 1888, but it stopped at the bottom, in the village of Cercedilla. To reach the snowy mountain slopes, people then had to climb an additional 10 km with 700-meter elevation gain. Local residents offered the few tourists the chance to rent donkeys and tamed horses. The donkeys and horses came with instructions. The animal, once tied, will take you up to El Ventorillo, but if you let it go, whether you are riding it or not, it would simply stroll back to its corral in Cercedilla. These were the self-driving taxis of the 19th century. Of course, not many dared to take such a difficult route. When the mountain train was inaugurated, it was a success from day one. The cars were always packed with people and their 1920s ski equipment. Humanity had finally conquered nature, and only when people gained power comparable to that of nature could they finally stop fearing it and start enjoying it. It's no joke, today is the 1st of May, and we are in center of Spain, one of the hottest countries in Europe. Nevertheless, after only a 20-minute train ride up, we find ourselves in a winter tale, with everything around us covered in snow. For centuries before, people lived here, endured the insufferable heat, and had never seen snow in their lives. The Cercedilla Mountain Railway successfully survived the Spanish Civil War and the severe post-war crisis. It was nationalized in the 1950s and extended to its current length in the 1960s. In the 1970s, the line underwent an overhaul, and the currently used Series 442 trains entered service. In the 1980s, the line was integrated into the Madrid suburban railway network as Line C9, and consequently appeared on the map displayed in every train. Not many cities in Europe can boast a mountain railway as a part of their suburban network. But the line's fate was predetermined. Car ownership was on the rise, and more people preferred the convenience of their own vehicle. The railway did not climb particularly high. Its final point, the Cotos mountain pass, is accessible by paved roads all year round. In 2011, the railway operator cancelled 6 intermediate stops on the line, as hardly anyone was using them. That is what sparked my curiosity. I saw those abandoned railway stops and wondered, what were they there for? On the map, there are no footpaths leading to them, nor could I find any on historical maps. I decided to visit one, and it was quite difficult. I had to crawl down from the road through the snow along a creek, and I did not even manage to take any video. I can hardly remember how I made it back up. The train stop was quite large, and to my surprise, it even had a chimney. Why is there such a well-equipped train stop that seems to have never served any passengers? For more than a year, I couldn't find the answer online until a local man also went there and published a video on Facebook. It turned out that until the early 2000s, these stops served as mountain huts. They had windows and doors, and tourists slept inside. Nobody does that anymore in Europe. No one sleeps in a sleeping bag on a train station when there is a wide selection of cheap hotels just a few kilometers away. Tourism has changed dramatically, not only over the last 300 years, but even over the last 30. Today, we ride these trains not out of necessity to get from one place to another, but for the experience itself. We don't have to drag our skis from one carriage to the next, pushing through crowds. We don't have to plan our entire day around train schedule. We have cars now, and they can take us to any hiking trail, to any ski resort, not just this one. And yet, we still come here to ride this good old train. We come for its charming retro design, for soft comfortable leather seats, for the windows you can open and lean out of, feeling the wind on your face while the landscape rolls by. We come for the noises, for gentle swaying, for sharp turns that somehow make 40 kilometers per hour feel like 400. 100 years later, it's no longer just an old train crawling along a humble railway built with the cheapest materials they could find. It's a charming train, full of character, and it deserves to be ridden simply for the joy of it. The same thing happened with mountain walks. Once the danger, discomfort, and sheer necessity faded away, once we learned how to manage the risks, build proper paths, and make the outdoors more accessible, we stopped fearing nature. And in that moment, hiking transformed from a task to a pleasure. What was once hard, uncomfortable, and practical slowly became something we seek out for beauty, reflection, and delight. The train followed the same path, from utility to experience, from necessity to nostalgia, from we must to we want. Unfortunately, this was one of the last journeys of this train. The line is currently being completely reconstructed, and when it reopens to the public, it will be served by brand new trains. What do you think of their design? Would you ride those just for fun as well? Share your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I have plenty more railway stories to tell. Thank you for watching and see you soon.